Alex Golesh has been introduced as the 33rd head football coach of Auburn University. Yes, sir. What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's episode of the Up Tempo podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dustin Smith. Alex Golesh has been introduced as the 33rd head football coach of Auburn University. John Cohen and the school held the press conference yesterday introducing Alex Golesh. And I got a couple of thoughts from the press conference, some of the things that he said that really stood out to me that I want to get into today, and just kind of talk about the overall mood and the tone he set in his first address to the Auburn family. So before we get into that, man, like the video, sub to the channel. November was the best month the show has ever had in terms of every analytic. You guys are absolutely the best. So if you're over listening on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your audio, go ahead, turn on those automatic downloads, leave a 5-star review, follow us over there. And if you are somebody who listens exclusively on audio, come over here to YouTube, subscribe, go ahead, sign up for those memberships, man. The community is growing every single day. Every time I get on YouTube, we got more subs, we got more views. It's great, man. Thank you guys so much. This has just been an awesome time. Despite 5 straight losing seasons, you guys continue to tap in because you love your Auburn Tigers. And I cannot thank you guys enough. But listen, man, I'm excited. And there's before we get on some of the things that Alex Golesh said, because I thought that he did a great job. And look, winning the press conference doesn't mean you're going to win football games, but you can only do the task that's ahead of you at the current time, right? And I think he said some things that Auburn fans definitely want to hear. But before we get into kind of breaking down some of the things he said, I just want to kind of talk about the overall tone and the overall mood. John Sumrall, who was a leading candidate for Auburn for a long time, introduced yesterday at Florida. Obviously, Alex Golesh introduced yesterday at Auburn. Go and look at the 2 different videos of John Sumrall pulling up to Florida and walking into his introductory press conference versus there being a Tiger Walk, and a pretty solid turnout for a Tiger Walk that's literally a coach just walking to a press conference. And I'm not saying this to throw any shade at Florida, but I think it just kind of tells you, one, like Florida was dead set on Lane Kiffin, right? And you're kind of seeing their fan base come around after hearing John Sumrall talk. And look, I think it's a good hire. I'm not going to backtrack. When I thought Auburn was going to hire John Sumrall and I thought that it would be a solid hire, I still think it's a solid hire for Florida. And if he wins games there, they won't care a bit. But it is a hard sell for the Florida fans to have another group of 5 coach coming from Louisiana when they were dead set on Lane Kiffin. But you saw yesterday at Auburn with that Tiger Walk, and you're kind of seeing like in the online reaction, this is a fan base that's ready to get behind the new coach, Alex Golesh. And this is a fan base that, quite honestly, is just desperate to win football games. At the end of the day, Auburn fans continue to show up. They continue to show out, and they haven't been rewarded for their loyalty. And after 5 straight losing seasons, they're desperate for something different, very hopeful, very optimistic that Alex Golesh is that guy. So let's get into some of his notes. I think one thing that every Auburn fan loves to hear is when he says, we're going to run the freaking football. He said, we're going to find different ways to establish the run. And it's one thing to say that. We've had previous coaches say that they don't mind running the football and everything goes through running the football in the SEC. And then it gets down to it, and you're at the end of games, and you're looking and you got a running back that's got like 14 carries for 92 yards in a game that you lost by a touchdown, and the coach says, yeah, I should have ran it more. Alex Golesh saying, hey, look, there's not going to be any of that. We're going to establish a run. We're going to run the ball. Everything that this offense does is predicated off of a smash mouth run game. And that's music to our ears, right? I've said it a million times on this show. You can't be the head coach at Auburn University and not understand the importance of running the football. You can't be the head coach at Auburn University and shy away from running the football. You can't be the head coach of Auburn University and sit in a press conference, loss after loss after loss after loss after loss, and tell us that you should have ran the football more. And then the next week, after the next loss, say, I should have ran the football more. That's going to drive any fan base crazy. It's going to drive any SEC fan base crazy because this conference was kind of founded in that identity. And obviously football has its ebbs and flows. It changes. You have times where they air it out and the spread becomes super popular, and then defenses adjust, and then it kind of goes back and forth, right? But all in all, we know that the SEC is a league that's founded on running the football and playing good defense, and it's hard to win in this league if you don't do it. So every fan base is like, hey, you gonna run the football? But at this one in particular, where Cadillac, Ronnie, Bo Jackson, right? We can go on for, I'm not going to spend the next 5 minutes naming all the great running backs at Auburn. Y'all know what it is. The DNA of the program, I've said this before, the foundation of Jordan-Hare Stadium is literally running the football. So for Alex Golesh to come out and say that, one, I think he means it. And two, it just kind of, he understands. He understands what it's going to take to win at this school in particular. And when he said, we're going to be the most violent. He said, we're going to be the most violent team on the football field every Saturday. Using verbiage in a tone that is much different from the previous regime. You hear some cuss words in some of the videos that you've seen about when he addressed the team and stuff like that. This is a guy that is not here to, I'm not saying he's going to be a butthole, but he's not here to play nice and make friends. He's here to win football games. And there's a particular way that he believes that it has to be done. Establishing the run, smash mouth type football. Now, it's explosive. It's very exciting. There's a lot of different ways. A lot of us, like old school Auburn fans, we're kind of used to that power eye, line up, just turn around and hand it to the back. There's a lot of different ways you can run the football. And I'll speak to on a second the most important thing, or the thing that I like the most about what Alex Golesh said. But you don't have to be married. You don't have to be married to one particular style. There's a lot of different ways that you can establish the run. And I think that when you look at Alex Golesh's offenses, dating back to his time as the OC at Tennessee, really when Tennessee started to turn it around, I think that there's a lot of evidence that he will attack the run game in many different ways. And it's very much so like, what is the defense doing? Okay, well, we'll adjust and we'll attack it in that kind of way. But at the end of the day, like any really good offense, honestly, I mean, Michael Leach had his thing. There are guys that, air raid guys that can still move the sticks. But more times than not, man, it's really hard to win a football game if you're not running the football. This is a fan base that knows that. Here, when you had a last coach who, quite honestly, we all know what it was. After the Kentucky game that Auburn won 2 years ago where Jarquez went for plus 250, Auburn's last head coach said, I wish we could have threw the ball. It was hard for me to keep running the ball when they had that many guys in the box. He said that after a running back ran for 250, that it was hard for him to hand it off. I think that if Auburn is gashing people in the run game, Alex Golesh isn't going to say after the game in the post game, yeah, I wish we could have threw the ball. I think he's just going to be like, yeah, it worked. We ran it down their freaking throat. So that was music to my ears. It was music to a lot of Auburn fans' ears. The part that I want to speak on that I thought was the most interesting, the part that kind of caught my attention the most and got me the most excited was he said that what Auburn is going to do on offense, what his offense, even this question was kind of asked around quarterback. What kind of like quarterback are you looking to bring in? What kind of quarterback fits your system? His plan for quarterback development. And he said that we're not married to one scheme as an offense. We're not married to, he said we're not plug and play. Meaning I have a scheme. This is the way I do it. And if you can't do it, you won't be here. We're going to try to, force something on you, force you to fit into this. He said, no, whoever our quarterback is, we're going to find his strengths. We're going to find his weaknesses, and we're going to tailor the offense around him. Now, a lot of coaches say stuff like that. But again, in particular, we can look at the last two, make an argument for probably the last three. Gus was a little more flexible, but still there was limitations. The last three head coaches at Auburn, especially the last two, really just like, this is my system. This is what I'm doing, and we're going to force it. And you saw just this year, whenever the offense was turned over to Derek Nix after Hugh Freeze was fired, they didn't listen. In the short amount of time that Derek Nix had, he did not bring in a new scheme, right? That's why you have installs in the offseason. You can't change up an entire offense. He just called new plays. There wasn't this massive change schematically from what Hugh Freeze and Derek Nix was doing because the roster was built a certain kind of way, and Derek Nix has a certain kind of offense, and that's similar to Hugh Freeze's, and that's what they had practiced. There wasn't any like this huge change of scheme when the offense got better under Derek Nix. It was just the play calling got better. But you still had a situation in the last 3 years where whether it be Jackson Arnold or whether it be Peyton Thorne or whether it be Hank Brown, where these guys were really kind of being forced to do some things that it became obvious they weren't good at. And we kept down that road. We kept down this road with Jackson Arnold last season, which it doesn't feel good to say last season, like, thank God that's over. We kept going down this road trying to force Jackson Arnold to do things that Jackson Arnold maybe not was good at. And there was never a pivot until there was a coaching change. It feels good to hear a head coach stand up there and say, whatever our talent is, whatever our quarterback's best at, that's what the offense will look like. So if we have a guy that has a cannon arm and can stretch it down the field, that's what we're going to do. If we have a guy that's more power run, like a Byron Brown type guy, that his quarterback there at USF, and we're going to see how all that plays out. There's going to be a lot of moving parts here. Just going to focus on the press conference on this particular episode, but we've got a ton to talk about in the coming weeks. But you can look at it's not just talk. It's not just him saying things. Look at his history. Brock Purdy. How different is Brock Purdy, a guy that he coached? How much different is Brock Purdy than his last quarterback, at USF, Byron Brown? They're completely different play styles. But he molded an offense to fit the quarterback that he had, to get the best out of that quarterback, to find out what he's good at, and let's put him in the best position to succeed. Not, this is my system, we're going to do it, you got to figure it out, these are our reads, these are our principles, this is what we're doing. There will always be some of that, right? But to say, hey, we can switch things around here a little bit and be flexible. He also talked about the offense being flexible. He talked about wanting to be able to attack defenses in a multitude of different ways. He said, I've changed my offense somewhat every single year. He said, our offense does not look exactly the same from year to year because our personnel changes. Guys, that's a sign of a good coach. If he can come to Auburn and do that, that's a sign of a good coach. Now, so far, he's done it. He did it at an OC at Tennessee. He's done it in his previous stops. I just mentioned two very different quarterbacks that he's coached. The question now is, can you do it as a head coach on the highest level? That's the question. And we're all going to find out together. But I think there's reasons to be optimistic. And when I heard that, that's something I haven't heard an Auburn coach say in a long time. Gus's system was Gus's system. Harsin knew you were going to do things a certain way. Hugh Freeze, you know what it was, man. RPO, this is what we're going to do. I got to get the guys in here to fit my system. That was the whole thing with the 6 and 7 year. And then 5 and 7 the next year. Like, I just let me get my guys. I got to get my guys. Year three, I got to get the guys to fit my system. To hear a coach say, man, whatever our talent is, that's going to be the system that we run. One, it speaks to if he's able to pull it off, which again, so far he has in his coach's career, but being the head coach at Auburn is a little bit different than anything he's had to do yet. So far, all the evidence points to he is able to do it. Now we're going to find out if he's able to do it on the big stage. But that's the sign of an elite coach, if he's able to do that. And I know that Nick Saban was a defensive guy, and I know that Nick Saban is an extreme example, but it's just the obvious one that everybody can kind of relate to. Look at how he's changed with the game. Well, look at any other coaches. Kirby, look at any of the coaches now that have been long tenured and been successful. They're willing to change with the game. They're willing to adapt. Those guys, the ones that can change, adapt, continue to build systems around their players, as schemes, as other teams catch up to what you're doing and always staying a step ahead, those guys are the elites. Those guys are the best of the best. Those guys are the ones that have longevity. Then you have guys like Jimbo Fisher. Then you have guys like Hugh Freeze that draw up a good scheme, that have a good system, the game catches up to them and they don't have a pivot. They can't stay one step ahead. So once the game catches up, everything else kind of starts to fall back. So if Alex Golesh is able to do that, if he's able to mold his offense around whatever the quarterback's strengths are and the talent around him, and he's able to stay one step ahead of the other defenses and always kind of, they're gonna catch us here, so let's be ready to do this. If he can bring that as the head coach at Auburn, the way that he has in every other stop in his career, it will be something that Auburn has not seen in a long time, and it'll be a big plus. It'll be a big check in the positive department. Guys, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, the subscriptions, everything analytically for the show in November, off the charts, man. Best it's ever been. Another thing that is continuing to grow is this family that we're building right here at the Uptempo Podcast. Level up today, man. Sign up for these memberships. $3.99 a month to get you to the JV squad. $5.99 a month to get you to the varsity squad. Look, this right here helps support the show a ton. We are not backed by, the major networks, the ESPNs, all that kind of stuff. It's a very small operation here at the Uptempo Podcast, and I could not do it without the Auburn family. I could not do it without you guys. Your financial support keeps the lights on here, continues to give us the opportunity to provide you this great content. And right now is the time that you want to sign up because there's a lot happening. There is a lot going on. Mr. Cody Burns coming back to Auburn as associate head coach. How about that? I'm sure we'll have an episode on that soon. What's going to happen with the DC? And obviously, tons and tons and tons of recruiting stuff in these final few days as the class kind of flips around a little bit. You've seen a lot of guys decommit. You've got a new commitment. So we've got film breakdown. And guess what? Because the recruiting has been so lackadaisical this year, and that has basically been because the season started with a coach on the hot seat and then it didn't go well. So no one commits in that kind of time, right? So there hasn't been any recruiting content for me to put out. That's all about to change. And what I'm going to do is when Auburn's class is finalized, which will be here in a couple of days, actually, when Auburn's class is finalized, we will do a film breakdown for every single member of the class. We will break down the senior film for every single member. So you have got a lot of member pods coming down the pipe in these next few weeks. Sign up today. And also, did you know we got basketball? Did you know Auburn's ranked in the top 20 in basketball? There's so much going on. There's so much content that if you want to sign up for these memberships right now, man, it helps supports the show. And also, this is the best way to keep up. I get a lot of DMs saying, man, I wish you could go every day. If you want an up-tempo episode every day, go ahead and sign up for these memberships, man. That's the way to do it. Thank you guys so much for your continued support and helping the show grow. A few more things I want to speak on before we get out of here today. A big question that he was asked that I thought was a very, very good question and is very important. He was asked about the fourth quarter. He was asked about if he was aware, one, of Auburn's fourth quarter struggles in the last 2 years. Just a lot of close losses. It's probably like over 10 losses by 10 points or less over. I'm just kind of off the top of my head here. It's been a lot, right? It's been a lot. We all know them. We could all name them. It just feels like every single loss Auburn's had over the last 2 seasons is a game that Auburn could have won. He said the fourth quarter is a mindset. You train for it every single day. And he's 100% right. It's something there's some stuff he said, man, I can't tell you. I was driving back from work listening to the press conference. And I just wanted to pull over on the side of the road and scream with joy with some of the stuff that he said. Because it's like, brother, you're saying the same things we've been saying on this show for years. And it is a mindset. It's all about culture. And Auburn's mindset, Auburn's culture right now is when it gets tough, we fold. When it gets tough, we don't execute. When it gets tough, we find a way to lose the games because we don't have the proper mindset. And I love Alex Golesh's answer on this question. He said it starts in July. He said it starts in the summer. It starts in the summer workouts. He said it starts in January. It starts in the winter workouts. It starts the first day you get together as a group. You have to train to one where you're still physically in good shape in the fourth quarter, right? But every team in the SEC has got strength and conditioning programs where that's their goal. It's a mindset. And Auburn, over the past several years, has not had the right mindset, has crumbled, has folded. The moment's been too big. And you could see in the head coach's eyes over the past 4 to 5 seasons that the moment was too big. And if the troops are looking at their leader and he's scared to lead them into battle, how can they follow him? Alex Golesh does not come off to me as a guy that's going to be scared of the moment, that's going to be scared to lead his troops into battle. And he's 100% right. It's all about your mindset. So we don't know if he's the guy to turn that around until Auburn gets in a close game, but I'm optimistic. And he definitely appears to be a guy. And we're going to get more into his background. I'm going to have an episode later in the week kind of breaking down everything about him, culture rebuilds, scheme, his personal background, really kind of getting into the guy, the man that is Alex Golesh today. I just want to keep this one about reaction to his opening press conference. But there's a lot about his story. There's a lot about his mindset that makes me optimistic. I'm not guaranteeing anything, guys, but makes me optimistic that he is the man to get Auburn back into winning fourth quarter games and having that Mamba mentality in the fourth quarter that Auburn has lacked for a long time. A couple other things he said that sounded like some of the all-time greats. He said this is a process-driven, going to be a process-driven program, going to be a player-driven program. What does that mean? Why is that important to Auburn? One, when he says player-driven, he's not saying, players got free reign. They can do whatever they want. He's talking about accountability. Players holding each other accountable. He said, once we get to that point, he said, Auburn will win national championships. He said, when it's the coaches completely running the program, you cap out. There's a ceiling that you can hit. He said, when the players are bought in to what the coaches are speaking and they start holding each other accountable, then you really see things starting to turn. And he's right. And if there's any, and I'm sure a lot of y'all out there played sports growing up, you played high school sports, hell, you maybe even played in college, maybe even played in pros, I don't know. But plenty of y'all have played sports and you've been on bad teams and you've been on good teams. And you know what he's talking about. You know what he's talking about. You got teams where there's a couple of guys that maybe goof off, do the wrong things, and no one checks them. And it poisons the culture. And then you have teams where the leadership is strong and those kind of things aren't allowed. People are checked. Egos are checked at the door. It's about the team. And when the players start holding their peers accountable, because no one wants to let a coach down, right? But you really don't want to let your teammates down. You really don't want to let the guys that you're in the foxhole with down. It's like, if you have siblings and you're a kid, yeah, you make your parents mad. Your parents might ground you. And you might even be like, man, I messed up. I didn't want to, I hate that I let my mom or dad down there. But if you disappoint your brother or sister, like you get them in trouble or you do something that kind of puts them in a bad spot, it's just a different feeling like, man, I let my brother down, man. And we were in this together. It's a little bit of a different feeling. He talks about having to get the players to hold each other accountable and build that culture. It's not easy to do. I think there's guys at Auburn that mean well in terms of that aspect, like the leaders on the team. I think they mean well. But at the end of the day, when you don't execute in the fourth quarter, when your leaders are not making plays, when your leaders are absent, and some of the best players on Auburn's team are absent in the fourth quarter and have been for many years now, some of the leaders, some of the captains don't make plays in clutch moments. It's hard. It's hard to hold other players accountable. When your leaders, when your captains don't get sacks, they're completely invisible in big moments. Right? Sounds good. And those players, they're great kids. They're great players. But where are you when we need you? Once that changes, and it all kind of ties together into the fourth quarter mindset, into players holding each other accountable and being a player-driven program. All that kind of goes together. Music to my ears, man. Last thing I want to speak on here when he talks about the process. It being a process-driven situation at Auburn. Look, a lot of people say that and then don't mean it. The guys that mean it, the guys that are actually able to execute that, you see the level that they're able to succeed at. I can confidently say that the previous two regimes at Auburn, there have been a lot of holes in the process. There's been a lot that slips through the crack. The attention to detail actually wasn't there. He said, I've got the next 6 months mapped out damn near to the minute for this program. If that's true, you're looking at at least the right mindset. That's the way that champions in this sport and in other sports, that's the way they achieve victory. There's so much that goes into being good in college football. There's so many different layers to building a good program. But the elite ones start with that process driven mindset. This is what we're doing today. We have to focus on this, getting better at this. There's a whole attention to detail. You know, John Cohen spoke about intelligence. I don't think he was saying that on accident. And I'll leave that at that. But he talked about we needing somebody who is super intelligent. This is a very, very hard job. You have to have a high IQ to pull this off. And if Alex Golesh is able to do the things that he said at that press conference today or yesterday, and if John Cohen is right in his assessment that Alex Golesh is very intelligent, then, you know, the sky's the limit. The sky's the limit for this Auburn program. And again, there's a lot to talk about here. We're going to get into staff. The staff isn't even finalized yet. You know, he was asked about DJ Durkin. By the time I post this, there could be an answer. There could be an answer at any time. He said there's a plan. I think from what I can tell, Auburn like wants to keep DJ Durkin. It appears like the ball's in DJ's court at this point. We'll see how all that plays out. But all in all, man, there's only, you know, he can't really win over anybody in terms of like actually believing in it until the football starts, but he can only do what's ahead of him, right? And I think that he crushed the press conference. He was asked some just really idiotic questions, and just from people who've been in the game a long time, trying to ask like got you questions. I didn't think it was cute. I didn't think it was funny. I think some of the people that asked some of those questions trying to look for like a quick soundbite, quite frankly, I think they should be embarrassed. That was just really sad. But I like the fact that he didn't really give it any time of day, right? He just kind of like, okay. And he just seemed like a guy that wasn't there for the bull crap. He didn't really seem, there was the question about the golf, and there was another one, of course, from al.com that kind of had like a weird exchange in it. And he just kind of like looked at the guy like, what? Just ask me the question, man. You know, I tweeted this out yesterday after I watched it. There are coaches that love what football brings to them, the fame, the glory, the money, all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying, and they probably like football, but they also really enjoy what the other stuff that football brings. I think we've seen some of those guys in this cycle here that enjoy the hype, enjoy the media, right? Enjoy being in the spotlight. I don't think the impression I got was Alex Golesh doesn't care. The impression that I got that Alex Golesh is here to win football games, that he's a football guy that wants to play football. So, look, my hobbies are football. He said, I like to do football stuff, and we're going to work harder than anybody else. And a lot of people, when they get these big jobs, they say the right things in terms of this is a dream job. And, you know, Alex really seemed to be humble and seemed genuine. You could kind of see him getting kind of emotional, stopping a couple times to kind of take in the moment, make sure he was answering the question properly. I thought he did. I thought to I hate this term. I don't really care, but I thought he quote unquote won the press conference, if you want to go down that road. But I don't think any of it was fake. I don't think any of it was like scripted. It was very raw. It was very real, and I think that's what you're going to get from Alex Golesh. So as we move forward here, there was tons and tons and tons of content that we got to get to. How do we feel about the athletic director, John Cohen, and how he handled the search? Does it even matter if he landed the right guy? And the answer to that is no. He could have fumbled the search at epic proportions. Ultimately, if Alex Golesh wins, then all that will be remembered in terms of John Cohen is you hired the right guy. So his legacy will kind of be determined by this hire, but we're definitely going to discuss just how it all went down. And there's And then we really got to get into the weeds of this thing about who Alex Golesh is. Coming from Russia as a young man, his family fleeing Russia with the fall of the Soviet Union, and then kind of getting into his coaching background. And there's so much that we are learning about Alex Golesh, that we're going to continue to learn about Alex Golesh. And again, this is just a reaction to the opening press conference. We're going to do a lot of episodes kind of diving into who he is as a coach, numbers, breakdowns, all that kind of stuff. So tons and tons and tons of content, lots of stuff happening right here on the Up-Tempo podcast. Do me a favor, guys. Follow me on Twitter at DMcShaw28. Subscribe to the channel today. It costs you nothing. It's absolutely free. Smash that thumbs up button and find the link that I have shared out if you have an X account and retweet this, or, just say share it on your own on Facebook, wherever it is that you do your social media thing. I see a lot of y'all have been sharing those over on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. Thank you guys so much. I don't have those accounts, but I do see that you guys are sharing it out. So thank y'all, man. Love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Stay locked in because the content is coming all week right here on the Up-Tempo podcast. Word and Eagle, baby.